All right, challenge number 2 here is the dessert ingredients. And Dana really tried to screw me over on this one, but I think I have got it. So, we got some butter beans here, which are large lima beans in sauce. Nothing says dessert like beans, except for beef flavored ramen noodles. And I am going to assume that Dana meant for just the noodles to be the ingredient and not the beef flavoring. But I am going to work in the beef flavoring, so take that. Then we've got some mandarin oranges. And we've got some regular gummy bears, not the fancy schmancy brunch themed ones before. All right, first thing, I've got this Welsh tea. You can tell it's really Welsh because it has Welsh on it. And I'm gonna take about a teaspoon of that. And I'm gonna put it in this little tea ball and in the water, and I've got some water boiling over here. I crushed up the ramen in here. Need about 1.5 cups. I think that's pretty close. I'm gonna put that on this baking sheet. Spread it around. And we are going to toast this in the oven for 10 minutes. And I've got the tea steeping for 3 minutes, roughly. Strong Welsh tea. I'm going to add a little bit of milk to that, which is exactly how Henry VII would have done it, the first Welsh king of England. And this has nothing to do with the dessert, but I'll enjoy it while I cook. So we've got this all stirred together. And the goal is as it heats, that sugar will completely dissolve and you'll have a really thick liquid. It definitely has a little bit of beef tinge to it, so we'll keep our fingers crossed about that. Once the sugar is completely dissolved and it's actually liquid, I'm gonna let it simmer for a while. And then we'll pour it over we'll mix in the toasted ramen and some butter, and we pour it out to cool. All right, we've got our ramen. Looks like it's about done being toasted. I have no idea how to tell if ramen is done being toasted. It's starting to get brown. So we're gonna pull that out. Put that here. In addition to the ramen praline that is still working up over here, we're also going to be making use of these clementine or mandarin oranges into a mousse. And for that, I've got my bowl set up here as a double boiler, so water underneath. I'm going to put in 3 eggs. I'll put in 3 egg yolks. I'm going to make a sort of pudding here and then cream it later. We're going to put in the other half. So I opened the other 2 mandarin oranges and got the other half cup of juice. I'm going to pour that in there. I'm going to need a bigger bowl. And a pinch of salt. And a cup of sugar. And we're going to whisk this together. Here's my whisk. In my last video, I realized mostly you guys got to see the top half of whatever I was doing, so I'm trying to hold the phone so you can actually see it. All right, so we're gonna turn this broiler on, double boiler on. Medium heat, let that water underneath start to boil. And we're going to make a sort of base here. And then a little bit later, that's gonna cool. We're gonna heat it up, very similar to what we're doing with the praline. We're gonna heat it up, let it kind of simmer a little bit, and then it'll cool and thicken. And then at a later step, we're gonna fold in some whipped cream. So this has been going for about 15 minutes, like I said. So we're gonna take that off the heat. We're going to, sorry, I'm starting to have a lot of stuff on the stove. We're gonna move that over here. All right, so we got off the heat. We're gonna add our tab of butter. I switch over to a, there we go. And we're going to add our toasted ramen noodles. All right. I'll mix all this up. And we are going to pour it onto our pan. All right, there we go. We're gonna let that cool. So this is gonna thicken. I'm gonna cover it. I'm gonna chill it. Basically becomes a pudding. And then later we're gonna mix it with some whipped cream and some more clementine wedges to get the rest of the mousse. But this is the base. While that's happening, I'll show you the other ingredients I've prepped. I've got 2 eggs, I've got some flour, I've got some sugar and some milk over there, and I've got a mixing bowl. Here's what's gonna happen. These are the beans. And my inspiration came from that great Pennsylvania Dutch tradition of potato bread. And I thought, well, if you can make bread out of potatoes, you got to be able to do it out of beans, because beans are basically a simple starch like bread, especially when they've already been canned. And if you can make bread, you can make donuts. So we are going to do butter bean sourdough donuts. And we're going to top them with a beef ramen praline and a mandarin orange mousse. Ta-da! So I found out why this was taking forever. It's because I was using mandarin oranges instead of lemon juice. And I didn't think of it, but there's not enough acid. The lemon juice would curdle, and that would make your pudding. I thought there'd be enough sugar in there for it to thicken anyway, but there wasn't. So, Carol to the rescue, we added a couple teaspoons of gelatin. Just gonna let this simmer for a minute or two, and then we'll let it cool from there. So, first audible. The good news is the praline has almost cooled, and it is, I'll tell you, that is one beef ramen flavored dessert right there. There's no way to make this sound appetizing, but you'll just have to take my word for it that it's pretty good. I'm going to put it in the freezer so the thick parts can get even harder. The excitement, I forgot that I still need to make my gummy bear glaze. So I'm going to do that by, again, melting down these gummy bears in the microwave, and then some powdered sugar to mix it together and make a glaze for the donuts. The powdered sugar in there, about a cup's worth. Got my melted gummy bears. I did end up putting a little bit of water. Last time I did corn syrup, but I'm putting in powdered sugar, so I didn't want to do corn syrup. So we're gonna pour this in here. This is
strawberry. The yellow ones are lemon.
I think the idea is you want about 2 tablespoons of liquid for each cup of confectioner sugar, but we're just gonna start and find out. I can always add more gummy bears or more sugar. My pudding base that I use gelatin in is cooling outside, so I'm gonna start to make the meringue. Here are the egg whites. Remember, I had 3 egg yolks in the base, so here are their whites. I'm gonna put about half of that in there. I'm going to add a couple tablespoons of sugar and a little bit of salt. And we're gonna turn this into a meringue. All right, looks like we've got stiff peaks. I'm gonna chill this and we'll get the whipped cream going. So I've got my bowl. I'm gonna pour in 1 cup of heavy whipping cream. And here I'm going to take a couple of those mandarin oranges. Our whipped cream. It's a little soft, but I think it's because it's got the oranges in it, and I think the mousse in general is going to be pretty soft. So we're going to go ahead and put this in the fridge too. Ready for round 2 of the donuts, since I made several grave errors last time around. I've started with, I'm not going to do the sourdough. I'm just going to do a regular yeast, just in case that was part of the problem. Although I did so many other things wrong, it would probably have been fine. But we're going to play it safe. So I've got my flour here. I'm adding in a cup of milk with regular active yeast in it that has been proofing in there for a few minutes. Adding in half a cup of sugar. A teaspoon of salt. A couple of eggs. And some of the reserve liquid from the butter beans when I drain them. And then finally a cup of the beans themselves, the star. Oh, and not finally, because the biggest mistake I made last time was I did not add my shortening. All right, so we've got our 3/4 cup of shortening. Sort of important for donuts. Here's a straggler. Now we're gonna lower the dough hook, and it knows what to do for a few minutes. We'll get it going. And that's gonna take 5 to 7 minutes. And then we'll roll it out, start cutting. Looks like we've got this. It was pulling away. I'll turn it on so you can see. It was pulling away from the sides. A little, starting to be cohesive. So I'm gonna pull that off. Look at that. Looks way better when you actually add all the ingredients properly. So I'm gonna pull that here onto our, I'm gonna flour this surface and pull it on here. Can't show you on video because it requires both hands, and I don't yet have a production assistant to do the filming. So we'll get that and then roll it out. This looks a lot better than my last dough, which had too much liquid, too much flour, no shortening. This stuff is coming out great. And also, Carol showed me something new. I thought this was 2 different cutters. One to make the biscuit, one to make the holes. Turns out you can attach them, and now I have a donut cutter. So we're gonna cut out, we should get about 24 donuts out of this. Let's see what happens for real. All right, so here's the, I'm gonna have to use 2 hands on this too. So I will turn off the camera and focus on getting these donuts cut out and transferred over to this baking sheet where they will rise while the oven preheats. Still waiting for the donuts to rise, which is taking longer than it said, but I thought that recipe was pretty suspicious. I think they are starting to have a little bit of a puffiness, so we're gonna let them go. Meanwhile, I've rescued my mousse, which still has to be assembled. I've got a pudding, clementine pudding here. I've got clementine whipped cream there. And I did have to redo my meringue. So the meringue's gonna go in here first. and then I'll show that, and then we'll mix in the whipped cream. So fold this in. You don't want to overdo it. I never did like folding in a meringue. I'm a little surprised actually. It actually seems like it makes the orange flavor stronger. Alright, step one. And I'm going to fold in our whipped cream. Now it's got a little liquid from sitting overnight. I'm going to leave that liquid in the bottom of the bowl there. I don't really want to transfer it over. Just transfer over what we can scoop. We'll fold this in. But there's our mousse. Very moussey. So I believe these are just about proof. They're looking pretty puffy. Go ahead and put this in for 15 to 20 minutes and see what happens. Godspeed, little donuts. This one was not in as warm of a location of the kitchen, so it is taking longer, which will probably work in my favor because I didn't really want to put them, there was not really room for both in the oven at the same time anyway. So hopefully I put them on the oven now so they can be a little warmer. And hopefully in about 15 minutes when the others are coming out, these will be ready to go in, but we'll see. Meanwhile, I've got my gummy bear glaze ready to go on. I've got my clementine mousse, mandarin mousse. I keep saying clementine. It's mandarin mousse in the fridge. Hopefully trying to set a little bit. It was a little soft still. And I'm gonna go get my ramen praline and get that crunched up a little bit more to sit on top of the donuts when they come out. 10 minutes to go. Let's see. Ho, ho, ho. They're looking good. Close it back up. 10 minutes to go. Let's see. Ho, ho, ho. They're looking good. Close it back up. The donuts are done, so I'm going to pull those out of the oven. Ho, ho, ho. Really good. Let's see. Those are still taking a little bit to proof there, so we're going to let them go. I don't need them, and I'd rather not rush them. You want it to go. It's okay if we have extra. I'm not quite sure the best way. I might try brushing this. It's okay if there's extra sitting on the pan. I am going to try brushing it. We'll just try a couple different things, see what works. Yep. Oh yeah, that's going to work best. So we're just going to brush this on each donut. And I'm not going to make you guys watch that whole process. All right, I've got one donut here. I've crumbled on top some ramen praline. It's got the gummy bear glaze and the piece of resistance. I'm not going to put that on top because it'll melt all over it. The piece of resistance, mandarin mousse. All right, Slate. All right, get some mousse on there. Did you get some mousse? Gotta get all the flavors. Can you taste the gummy bears? Mm-hmm. Can you taste the mandarin oranges? Can you taste the ramen noodles?
Yep.
Can you taste the beans?
Yep.
Nailed it! I mean, chopped! So the easy way to do this would be to do a dry ramen noodle salad, which I've actually seen as a real thing, and it actually has mandarin oranges, so I could crush up the ramen noodles, throw in some mandarin oranges, work up a gummy bear vinaigrette, and I guess stick a butterbean on there. But that would be the loser's way out. I've got something much more interesting and delicious planned.